You know, we tend to think of resilience as this incredible superpower, right? It's the ability to just push through hardship and keep on going. But what if? What if that very act of just enduring, of just fighting to survive day after day, is actually the thing that's holding you back from ever really thriving? That's the fascinating and kind of strange paradox we're digging into today.
This quote here, it comes from observations made in disadvantaged African communities, and it really nails the issue. When people face long-term chronic adversity, some get stuck in this loop of just treading water, but others somehow manage to fight their way forward. So what's the difference? What is it that separates those two groups?
So that brings us to this really core, counterintuitive question. Could that constant, draining effort to just stay afloat, could it actually be the anchor that's weighing you down? It's a really powerful idea, and to get our heads around it, we're going to need a bit of a roadmap. So here's how we'll break it down. First, we'll define what this endurance paradox really is. Then we'll dig into the hidden and pretty serious costs of being stuck in survival mode. After that, we'll look at a roadmap to get out of it, using 4 key pillars. And finally, we'll see how this whole idea can shift the conversation from just surviving to building a real strategy for growth.
Okay, so this paradox often shows up in communities that are dealing with long-term systemic challenges. And to help understand it, a new framework has actually emerged from work done in African contexts. It's called Holistic Resilience Theory, or HRT for short. And it's specifically designed to explain that crucial difference between simply surviving and actually getting ahead. Now, what's so useful about HRT is that it doesn't just describe the problem, it gives it a name, a diagnosis. It points to a very specific state that traps people in that sustained cycle of stagnation we mentioned at the start.
And that state, well, you could think of it as being stuck in permanent crisis mode. The official name for it is Sustained Immediate Resilience, or SIR. Imagine your body's emergency alarm bells are just ringing constantly with no off switch. And here's where the problem really lies. SIR is what happens when those quick fixes, the things you absolutely have to do to get through an emergency, when those become your everyday way of life. Because the emergency just never seems to end. It's a survival tactic that's been stretched out into a chronic condition. This comparison lays it out so clearly. Look, short-term coping on the left is vital. It's the emergency band-aid you need to stabilize a crisis. But when that temporary state becomes permanent, like you see on the right, it turns into a trap. You're so busy patching up leaks day after day that you never have the time or the energy to actually build a new, stronger boat. That's SIR in a nutshell. And let's be clear, this isn't just a mental thing. It takes a huge physical toll. Being stuck in SIR puts an unbelievable strain on your body and your mind. It's like a slow burn that causes damage way before you see any kind of obvious dramatic breakdown. This wear and tear actually has a scientific name. It's called allostatic load. It's the price your body pays for chronic stress, leading to things like higher blood pressure, a constant flood of stress hormones. It can even speed up aging at the cellular level. The source describes it perfectly. It's like you're constantly making withdrawals from a resilience bank account until you're completely overdrawn. And that's where the burnout and the hopelessness kick in. Okay, so that constant drain, that's the trap. So if SIR is the trap, how in the world do you get out? Well, this is where HRT offers a really clear path forward. It's not just a diagnosis, it's also a roadmap, and it's called the Resilience Potential Continuum. This is the journey it maps out. You start at step 1 with immediate resilience. That's the necessary short-term crisis stuff. But then you move to step 2, ongoing adaptive resilience, where you start to work on more permanent solutions. And the ultimate goal is step 3, strategic resilience, where you can be proactive, plan for the long term, and create real stability and growth. But here's the real key. The goal isn't just to get to the end stage and stay there forever. It's about developing what HRT calls resilience mobility, the flexibility to move between these stages as you need to. The problem isn't using crisis mode. The problem is getting stuck there. True resilience is being able to shift gears. So how do you actually build that mobility? How do you escape the SIR trap? Well, HRT gives us a toolkit, and it's built on 4 strategic pillars. Each one is designed to help build a different piece of this bigger, more sustainable kind of resilience. And this table here, it lays out the whole toolkit. You've got preventative strategies, that's all about building resources before a crisis hits. Then there's curative strategies to help heal from past trauma. Innovative strategies are about adapting and thinking creatively. And finally, self-resilience is about building that internal strength and autonomy. You can see how they all work together. It's a whole system for growth.
Okay, so let's just zoom out for a second. Understanding all of this, SIR, the 4 pillars, it's not just some academic exercise. It actually has the power to change how we think about everything, from community support to public policy.
This right here is probably the most powerful takeaway of all. We have to stop thinking about resilience as just being tough enough to endure horrible situations. The real goal, the true goal, should be to create the conditions that let people move out of those situations for good.
And when you boil it all down, the shift is this simple. One major change in perspective. Instead of just funding the short-term aid that helps people tread water, we have to start investing in the long-term, structural support that actually builds them a ladder so they can climb out of the water completely. And that brings me to one last question for you to think about. We always talk about resilience as bouncing back, but maybe that's not the right way to look at it. Maybe true resilience isn't about returning to where you were before. Maybe it's about having the capacity, the support, and the mobility to move forward to a new and better place altogether.